Hola familia, and welcome to another episode of the Realtor Rundown. Today our podcast office is swarming, believe it or not, with black suits and Secret Service because we have none other than our ARA 2023 President, Mr. Michael Fischer. It's an honor to have you here, Michael. Welcome.
Manny, it's good to be here. I'm not sure about the suits, but I'll take your word for it. It's a pleasure to kind of join you here today.
Listen, that's the point. They stay hidden. But I'm excited because for those of you out there who are listening to our podcast, who have not heard Michael speak or haven't seen Michael involved here around the organization, this is the perfect introduction. And for those of you that do know Michael, let's see what we can get out of him that we didn't know before, okay? So before, they come and whisk you away, Air Force One style, let's get started. I'd love to hear about your journey before real estate. Can you tell us what led you into it? How long ago and why?
Well, first of all, thanks again for having me. This podcast has been something that I had the pleasure of watching start and grow from just an idea and a concept. And it's a real testament to our committee work and our leadership team that, we saw a need and we're able to kind of address it. And to be here now, giving an interview and talking to our members and the public is pretty cool. I got into real estate back in 2010. I think I was probably the only crazy person to actually get into real estate. Before that, I went to the University of Georgia, graduated. Go Dogs, by the way. It was an interesting time to think about getting in real estate, but it was something that I always loved. I had a desk job with very strict rules on what you could and couldn't do, and I've never been somebody that works well in a confined environment. So I got licensed, started taking my classes in 2009, officially jumped into the business in 2010 and kind of never looked back. Started in Athens, eventually ended up moving into the city and following all my friends that had also graduated. My first client base was a lot of first-time homeowners that were graduating from the University of Georgia. They came into the city, and I kind of followed them and started helping them in their real estate game. Worked with a lot of investors over the years. It was a good time for investors to be in the marketplace. 2 years after I got started, I worked with a boutique brokerage here in town, and my broker said, Michael, you need to go get involved in the Realtor Association. And so I followed that. And I always say this, if you have mentors in your life, it's always really important to not only listen to what they tell you, but to actually do it. One thing I found in growing up is that the mentors are abundant. People love helping other people, and nobody's successful in this business without a mentor. But if you don't do what the mentor tells you, they're not going to waste your time on you. And I learned that early on, and I think it's an important lesson for anybody that's newer to the business. Find a mentor, but when they give you things to do and they're asking you, these are check marks for them. And if you don't do those, and they're not going to waste their time with you. So I took my mentor's advice there, my broker, got involved, and it just one thing led to another, and 10 years later, here I am being installed as president. It's a little surreal, but it's been a fun journey.
Yeah. Well, I want to. First of all, you mentioned something that I love. That alumni event. Whenever there is one for my college, I always go back to them.
Yep.
It's this reminder too. It's not like we've forgotten what I do. It's just a reminder of, hey, Manny is still around. He's still active, and that's a big one because that was kind of one of my first clientele bases too when I went into it. Well, you mentioned 10 years later, here we are. I want to hear a little bit about that journey. Were you involved in different committees? Was it straight to the top? Like what exactly did that look like for you?
I mean, I think the cool thing about this industry in general is that anybody can take different paths to be successful. I mean, if you look at just the sales side only, think about how many different kinds of clients you can work, different markets, different price points, different styles, timelines, people moving in and out of the city. I mean, there's so many paths just within a small part of sales. ARA to me is just like that. You find something you're passionate about, and you show dedication and put the time in. My first kind of thing that I really enjoyed was advocacy, and I still, at the core of everything that the Realtor Association does, I'm insanely passionate about advocacy. I just think what we do on the governmental affairs side is so important to protecting our industry and keeping us involved. But also, as a newer agent, the information that I got that I was able to transfer back to my clients about what was happening in the political side of the city, whether it was, Brookhaven where I live or the city of Atlanta, kind of knowing the nuance of the environments for development and, people that were cities that are adjusting to populations coming in or out, gave me some really in-depth knowledge that I was able to pass along to my clients. And as a new agent, that was immensely valuable. But as I kind of, got involved, other opportunities kind of came above, and I was asked to continue serving. And one thing I hate saying is no. I'm sure you can relate to that, Manny, because I know I've asked you several times to get involved and stay involved, and you're pretty good at saying yes too. But I got to touch different parts of the organization over the years, whether it be member engagement or our philanthropic endeavors, and it just one thing led to another, and I was asked to serve on the executive team. And after 4 years of that, I was fortunate enough to be able to be appointed as the president-elect, and got to work with Madam President Karen Hatcher last year, and serve as our president this year. So it's kind of been a long journey, but at the same time, it's been a blink of an eye.
I love it. Yeah, and there's that consistency of, leadership that keeps kind of being churned out is what I've noticed too, because I had the privilege of kind of doing a podcast with President Lippert, who was before President Hatcher. I got to interview her for her first, when she first got installed, and now with you. I mean, it's amazing to see kind of the work that you all do and how it really does. I mean, it's for the membership, and we want to keep these things going, and these, like you said, work and advocacy and work in these different committees moving forward. You mentioned something that stuck out to me. You mentioned your broker kind of led you to ARA specifically. So I'm guessing that's kind of one of those people, kind of mentors in your journey. Can you please share with us any other specific mentors or, within the organization or outside that really kind of have helped you out?
Yeah. Manny, do you have siblings?
I do.
Okay. So I never start talking about mentors until I bring up my little sister. If anybody else has family members, particularly siblings, for me, my sense of kind of compromise and conflict resolution and, bigger picture stemmed from all those relationships, and just good times with my little sister. I say good times, also bad times. As any sibling, you can be, throwing stuff at each other one minute and hugging and best friends the next. And so, growing up in a household with my parents and my sister, really kind of gave me a lot of my core values. And my dad, he's just a super hard worker and really puts his head down and accomplishes tasks that he sets out to. And he really doesn't know how to say no to anything. My mom is, she's the fairness and equity. She always, reached out when we were having an argument, or, we could just say, hey, you know what, that's enough. Let's pause, let's make up, let's move on. And so I got that from her. And then, of course, like I said, my little sister, I definitely learned how to compromise. Maybe not as early as I would have liked or as early as my parents would have liked, but kind of seeing the bigger picture and understanding, some of these conflicts. So I put a lot on my parents, and then along the way, I mean, gosh, I'm so fortunate to have had so many mentors within this business. I remember, and I'll tell a story here. So the past mayor of Atlanta, Sam Massell, he gave a speech at a presentation. It was just a small realtor event. And he said something that really stuck with me, which was, if anybody wants to come and meet with me in my office and talk about real estate, give me a buzz. And I had been licensed at that point in Atlanta maybe 6 months or so. And I said, well, he invited me. I'm going to give him a call and see what happens. And so I called his office, got a time to talk to him with his secretary. He called me maybe 30 minutes after the secretary hung up and said, did you really just call me? And I said, yeah, who am I speaking with? And he said, this is Mayor Sam Massell. Nobody's ever actually taken me up on that offer to come and sit with me in my office. And so he said, it would be an absolute pleasure to meet with you. And so here's me at, I think at the time I'm probably 25, and I had just been licensed. It's the middle of the recession. The market's, in turmoil. And here's the former mayor of Atlanta welcome me into his office. And we ended up sitting down and we talked for an hour and a half, and he was so generous with his time, and he was so kind to me, and I'll never forget that generosity. But he gave me some things to do, that mentors do. He told me some organizations to join. He talked about how important and dynamic the Realtor Association was here, particularly Atlanta. Sam's more on the commercial side, so he did a lot of selling of the city to executives and whatnot, trying to draw them into the city. But I think there's a lot of overlap between how commercial practitioners market the city as a great place to live and how we do it. And so I learned a lot, and most importantly was just that, always keep your door open for people. And so I'll never forget Sam opening his door, and he passed away recently, and he's got a book called Play It Again, Sam. So if anybody's looking for something on their reading list, he's got an incredible story of how he got into politics, and he was a great guy and a very giving person, and that kind of mentality is something that I've lived with. I constantly say, if anybody wants to have a cup of coffee with me, I'm not nearly as important as Sam was, but my desk is open, and so far nobody's taken me up on it. So I can relate to him in that capacity. But the important thing is that you be approachable, and that people are willing to help, and they want to help. They want to see people succeed.
Absolutely. No, and that giving of time is so important. It really speaks to character, I think. I have the same, very similar experience with those people who I call mentors of, the most valuable thing they ever gave me was their time and their attention, and their advice. So that's amazing. Also, as you went through the lessons with your family, I had to sit and reflect. It sounded like a board meeting, for
right.
conflict resolution being the thing that makes us all work together in the end. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm excited because 2023 is going to be fun. It's going to be full of, kind of things for us to find out and overcome. And as your presidency begins, I want to kind of hear what that looks like for you. How you see it unfolding, goals, initiatives. I know you've got some fun stuff up your sleeves.
Yeah, so I shared this in my installation speech. If you talk about realtors as a whole, generally the public and the consumer doesn't have the highest opinion of our work. We constantly rank at the bottom of a lot of these lists that rank favorability within different professions, and that always kind of ticks me off a little bit, because I know how hard we work, and I know how much value we bring to consumers. And the interesting thing is, if you rephrase the question and reframe it just slightly differently, not what do you think about realtors in general, what do you think about your realtor in general, the entire conversation changes. People love their realtor. They love their guy. Manny, I know you've got a good business, and I've kind of built up one as well. It's all referral based, and we wouldn't get referrals if people hated us.
Yeah.
And so this dynamic between us as a whole and us as an individual it inspired me. And what I wanted to do is find a way to tell our story better. And so this year we've launched an initiative using a hashtag called Showing Our Work. And what my goal is for our association this year is for us to start sharing our stories. The volume numbers are great. I love seeing when people sell $150 million, right? The consumer cares a little bit less about how successful we are. What they like is human interest stories. They like hearing about a veteran that leveraged a 100% VA loan to buy a home. They love hearing about a first-time homeowner that has dreamed about selling a home or living in a home, and they finally get it. They love hearing about small businesses and mom and pop shops. Real estate is a great catalyst for entrepreneurs, and there's so many amazing stories that I've heard over the years. And my goal through this hashtag is to really demonstrate how much value we bring, not just to the actual transaction itself, but to our communities. I know that you can personally relate to this too. I mean, just through your work in NARAP and LGBTQ plus Alliance, there's so much more that goes on outside the transaction.
Yeah, 100%. That you brought up some of these organizations. For me, that's how I ended up in real estate. Was I started, as an investor, and then all of a sudden I saw these groups that needed work within this industry. And you know, I kind of did. I felt a little bit of a calling to it. And when we talk in that manner with our clients, or, you know, we hear them talking about us and the work that we do outside of that transaction even, you know, you do feel that relationship building. And I love the hashtag showing our work, because we do make it, we have a way of making it look easy sometimes in real estate, right? People see
It's what makes us good at what we do.
right? People
Yeah.
see we're under contract. People see we close. What they didn't see is the 7 times that ball almost got dropped.
Or
You
the
know,
3 months of preparation that went into that listing that was not ready
Absolutely.
to sell, or the countless vendors that we shuttled through the home in perfect sequence
Yeah.
to get the home ready. And all that means is more value for the consumer, more value that, you know, that homeowner who's, by and large, the house is the biggest asset that a family has.
Yes.
And so if you can get, you know, $20,000 more on a listing, that's life-changing money. And then
Yeah.
thanks to our lobbying and our you know, the advocacy work we've done, you know, gains on real estate, if it's a primary residence, are not taxable. I'm not a CPA, by the way, but they're not taxable from $250,000 for a single person to $500,000 for a family. So it's not just the $20,000. That's taxable, non-taxable income that, you know, either rolls into another property or pays for a home renovation or pays for the move or the furniture. And then also, you know, it often means less time on market, so people can be a little bit more agile.
Yeah.
So there's just a tremendous amount of value, and it's so important to get these things right.
It is. I mean, and as we sit here, we're going through a million things that we want to improve in our industry, a million things that we want to do, and we keep, you know, working towards. So with that in mind, you know, I have been part of some organizations. I've been worked with groups
say the
where,
least.
well, worked with groups where you do have limited time to kind of make that impact, right? So the presidency here at ARA is 1 year, if I'm correct,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot to fit in. So I wanted to ask you, how will you achieve everything that you set out to do, you know, in this rather small time frame?
So I can't really properly articulate how much work goes into the planning. So all of 2022 is spent really developing the plan, working on the calendar, working with our leaders, working with our committees, making sure the right people are in the right places. I think I have, just as president, something like 50 or 60 different appointments that I have to make for this particular year. So for me, you know, I'm a planner. I live and die by my calendar. And if you're in real estate and don't live and die by a calendar, I don't know how you survive. Like, people do it, and I can't relate to it. But I wanted everything in my calendar as far out as possible. So for me, you know, it was I see my role within the association to keep us on track, keep us focused, keep us organized, and then I want to get out of the way and let our members do their things.
Yeah.
So I don't come with a, you know, massive personal agenda. I want to tell our story, and I want to make sure the organization runs very smooth and efficient, because that's the best thing at the end of the day for our members. The committee process is incredibly important. So we did, you know, you took part of with our leadership training, and a lot of what we talked about there was, you know, how does an idea become policy? How do you take something that comes up in a committee environment? How do you empower committee members to want to bring up ideas?
Yeah.
And then how does that then move through to the board of directors and become policy? You know, everything that we do, this podcast is a great example of it. It was an idea that came up, went to a committee, worked its way through our organization. Along the way, it gets polished. Lots of people get to give input. It's put together, and then, you know, the end product is so much better than what the original core idea was.
Yeah.
So I see my job as, you know, building consensus and giving a good platform for these ideas to turn into policy. And I think that it's all planning. So
Yeah.
it's working with our staff, working with our leaders to make sure that we're really developing this smooth flow through the organization that allows our members to feel like their voice matters.
I like that. You know, as you put it that way, obviously I hadn't seen it, you know, from that side. I've seen it from the side that, you know, sits on the board, and I see kind of the appointments that have come in, and I see that you are putting people to work, right? You are giving them a chance to rise up to the occasion, by their leadership in different committees, or people that are newer, putting them in vice chair positions and that type of thing. So that is, it is a beautiful thing to see when you are able to give opportunity to people. And that sounds like one of those really cool things about your presidency.
Yeah, and it's trust and empowerment. I have unlimited amounts of trust for our leadership team. I think they're incredibly capable. And I think through trust, you build empowerment, and people feel like they can make a difference. And so that's my goal. Really, I want to get out of the way and let our members do their thing. They're so incredible.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, y'all. 2023 is going to be one to watch. All right. Well, listen, we've talked a little bit about business and the industry and all that. And I told Michael to prepare himself because I've got a speed round of questions that I wanted to ask, right? We gotta get to know Michael outside of the association just a little bit. So got about 10 questions here. Just give me your answer. No need to explain. We'll go straight through it. First one. Tell me the place you want to visit most and haven't.
Antarctica.
Antarctica, I love that. All right. Favorite local-owned restaurant?
Chops.
Chops, okay. Let's see. An item that you collect. Do you have a collection?
Memorabilia from Georgia football championships.
Oh, I like it.
Dogs.
Okay. All right. Here's a good one. Would you rather be besties with Beyonce or Rihanna?
Beyonce.
The people wanted to know, so. All right. I'm going to ask this one. We already got the answer. Favorite sports team?
Go Dogs.
There we go.
But I will say that I am anything with an A or a G on the jersey and a ball, I'm in on it. So I'm a Hawks season ticket holder. I hold season tickets for Atlanta United. I go to way too many Braves games. Anything that involves our city, bringing people together, I'm all about. I know that was a long answer, but
no,
it's not just about the Dogs.
No, I've seen you at a couple different sporting events, so that's why I want to get down to business on that one. Let's see. First concert attended.
Sister Hazel.
Oh, okay. Where do you go when you want to be alone?
The gym.
Okay. Dogs or cats?
Dogs. Come on.
What habit holds you back the most?
Ooh, that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
What habit holds me back the most?
I had to throw in a thinker in there for sure.
I go to bed too late.
I can relate with that one. What's the funniest prank you've done or have had done on you? And I know you've got a couple buddies that are pranksters, so.
Do you remember back when people used to ice people? That was a thing for like a year.
Yep.
I am the most gullible person ever and cannot tell you how many times I got iced.
I'm not going to say I won't bring that up later in life, but good to know.
Please don't ice me. I won't forgive. I will definitely fall for it. I do it every time.
Let's see. And you know what? Bonus question right here. Do you believe in fate?
I believe you make your own luck, and I think that ties to fate.
I like it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you sat through the hot seat. Thank you so much, Michael. All right.
It wasn't so bad. That was fun.
It wasn't too bad, right? I feel like the most controversial question on there was definitely Beyonce or Rihanna, especially with the Super Bowl halftime show coming up.
Yeah, and if y'all don't know me, I listen to a lot of music, so those two are both regulars on my playlist, but I think Beyonce's moved the needle just a little bit more on the culture side, which is why I went with her.
I like it. All right, let me ask you, we're going to get back to our membership, right? So What advice would you like to pass to our membership, as we prepare in our businesses for 2023 as well?
I think it's hard to nail it down to one piece. I think the great thing about our association is we're so dynamic. We can serve people at any stage of their career. And, my advice for someone that's newer to the business is going to be different than a veteran. But I would say, a consistent thing is find a way to be involved at some level. The networking, I've done so many deals with people that I've gotten to know within these walls, and I've been surrounded at times. We've sat around tables before, and I've kind of counted up the production represented at the table, and sometimes, we're talking about billions of dollars of real estate being traded, and the amount of knowledge and experience within these walls is just unbelievable. I think you should surround yourself with people that you want to be like and that have habits that you want to emulate. For newer people, find a mentor. That's my advice. Nobody here is self-made. Manny, I know you've had a lot of mentors. I've had countless, and I would not be here without just the support of so many different people that have, taken time to help me through this entire journey. I'm the first generation college graduate. I'm a first generation realtor. I didn't grow up in the city. I grew up in Gwinnett. So, for me to carve out a piece of the market and have a successful business and to be in this position, it really took a village. So that's my main advice for somebody new. For those of you that are more experienced and leaning into your business, I just think there's the amount of information and networking that you can do within this building. It really keeps you honed into what's going on in the market. I can't tell you how many times we're sitting around a table and somebody's talking about a transaction that happened or, a predatory practice. I mean, there's always predators within this marketplace that are trying to take advantage of the consumer. And just being aware of what's going on makes me better at what I do. And I don't think there's ever a time where you can be complacent and sit back, because the second you do, other people will start overcoming and taking market share away from you. So for me, it's always been a process of professional development and growth, and then just being around people that kind of keep me honed in and knowledgeable. And I think whether my clients know it or not, they appreciate that, and it helps me help them.
I love that. You mentioned a couple things in there. How we do have to stay on top of our business constantly, right? That is 100% true in real estate. And I want to ask about that balance for you, because I know also you have a beautiful family. Obviously, you talk about your sister and your parents. How do you find time to balance that? And what advice would you give us on that side?
I think you mentioned that bad habit of going to bed too late. That might have something to do with my bad habit is the fact that I've got 2 little ones at home, and we've got a rescue dog as well, which she's very patient but also needs attention and love. I think it's about setting boundaries. I mean, I have a real strict guideline. I generally don't start work before 9 because in the morning it's about being with the girls and getting them ready for school and getting them out the door. And then unless it's just an absolute emergency, I'm generally not working past 7. I try and set boundaries around that. I even as president, I quickly learned that if things are typically an emergency, if you make them emergencies, and if you plan and stay disciplined, you can avoid these. I'll wake up sometimes to texts from other agents at 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night, and to me, there's no reason those kinds of messages can't be sent in business hours. And if you're sending things that late, you're not planning out your day right. So it's a lot of planning, it's a lot of discipline, but I make sure that what I do within the association doesn't come at the expense of my family. There's a lot of commitments, there's a lot of traveling involved, which is one thing that's a little different. In this industry, we get to stay home. We get to start the day at home. There's no traveling, but within the association, when you're working in this role, there's a lot of travel that is involved. So, it's about just being disciplined, putting in good practices, and like I said, I live by that calendar. And if you don't live by the calendar, I don't know how somebody could possibly keep track of all that. But my clients respect that too. And I tell them, look, unless it's emergency, I'm not. There's no reason for us to be talking after 7 p.m. So sometimes it comes up, and they know if I'm calling them late or we're sending messages late that it's going to be really, really important. But I think setting boundaries is really important, and the clients respect that. They don't want to get they don't want to get texts at 10:30. Yeah. Other realtors respect that. They have families, they have lives, and the worst thing is waking up at 10:30 in the morning or waking up at say 6 or 7 in the morning and seeing that you missed a text at 11 o'clock that you feel like you've immediately got to respond to. So yeah.
I get that. You mentioned the traveling now that you're part of the organization, especially as president.
Right.
And that stood out just because before I got involved, I think I'd be a little confused by that. Will you actually explain to us a little bit of kind of what these trips look like, what you're doing on these trips when you are, especially as president, right? I know one of them I can think of off the top of my head is working with the Georgia Association of Realtors, right? Yep. So can you tell us a little bit more of what that entails?
Yeah, so, I have the honor of representing our association. So, for those of you not quite familiar with the structure, there's a local, state, and national levels of the Realtor Association. Each one handles a different scope of the industry. Particularly, the way to think about it is, you've got local governments, you've got state governments, and you've got federal governments, and all of those have different responsibilities as far as taxes and, but within the organization itself, the state association serves lots of different roles. And so they have conferences and meetings, and it's part of my honor as being president to go and represent our voice in Atlanta as the one of the largest trade associations. We're the 19th largest realtor association in the country. So we have a loud voice, and we can move the needle on policies that our members bring to us. And I will say that too, if you're seeing something in the market, talk to somebody, right? Oftentimes the policy, and we've had things that literally go into federal law that were brought up by an agent in Atlanta seeing something predatory or seeing an opportunity for tax credits or whatever it might be. Even though the association's 1.6 million members nationally, we have a voice at the national level, and we're able to kind of influence what happens at the national level. So yeah, it's a process of being present and representing and making sure that we are part of the conversation at that level, so that our interests here in Atlanta and within the state of Georgia are represented.
I love that, and thank you for explaining that, because it kind of correlates a little bit with what you talked about, some advice to newer agents or really to all agents that maybe don't get out there and network within our industry, right? I mean, if we're head down and think that our business is just, what we generate within ourselves, we're not going to get too far, because some of this networking with other agents here locally, or like you do, travel abroad and get to learn about different practices and all that, really help you in your own industry, right? Learning what other people are doing, that kind of thing, opportunities that maybe we're missing out on.
I'll plug too. I mean, these conferences are open to all of the members. One of my favorites coming up in May, it's the conference in DC, and it's our legislative conference. So we actually go to DC, and we'll have 15,000 realtors that'll descend on Capitol Hill, and all of these interactions with our legislators influence the policy that happens at the national level. So if you like taking your mortgage interest rate deduction, or you think it helps your business, you have the opportunity to tell that to your legislator. And there's a reason why a lot of real estate tax benefits are often on the chopping block, because the government's looking for ways to create revenue. But we have the ability to go and really articulate and explain how important that is to families, to consumers, to the real estate industry, and the economic engine that it provides. And so we're able to tell our story at the national levels and meet one-on-one with a lot of these legislators. Yeah. That conference is free to attend. You just got to pay for a flight up to DC. It's a 3-day event, and there's one day on the Hill where we all go meet. And the other component of this is, you mentioned networking. I'm fortunate enough to have sent outgoing referrals, and I can make sure that my clients that move out of state are taken care of, because I've met these people in different states, and vice versa. They know if they've got people in Atlanta, they can call me. So it's been good for business. So it's it's just relationship building, networking, and there's a lot of people that have other business models that they're exploring and different things, and that's pretty cool too. So I would encourage you, if that sounds of interest, sign up for them. There's a ton of value that's created there, and Atlanta always has a big presence at all of these national events.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I actually have not had the privilege of going to the Dome, nationally, but I have done the local one. So for those of you who haven't, even gotten involved there, that was a first for me last year, and it's the legislative day at the Dome right here in Atlanta that happens, and I believe this year it is February 28th to March 1st. So look out for that, because that even on the local level will give you a little bit of an idea. But as Michael said, if this is really kind of advocacy is your thing, and you want to go on the national level, we have that opportunity with the Realtors Association, which honestly, who would have thought when I first thought of going in real estate that would be the involvement that I'm at. It's amazing, the journey.
I'm going to get you to DC. You're going to have to come to DC and join us there. It's one of my favorite things that we do as realtors.
We're going to do it.
Then the state conference is amazing too. So
yeah. Well, as a political science major in college, that's where I thought I would end up.
There you go.
Yep. So we'll see. I'll have to go there with y'all. Well, listen, it's been a great conversation. I want to kind of ask you one last question here. I want to see if there's any last thing you want us to be looking out for in your year ahead. This can be from you, the association, or even our industry. Any kind of last words of advice here.
Yeah, just the theme for this year, again, is showing our work, and we're going to be articulating the value that we bring, particularly outside the transaction. We have so many members that have just done amazing things. One of our friends, Christopher Matos Rogers, he was recently awarded the NAR Evergreen Award. Jennifer Barnes in Sandy Springs was awarded the Good Neighbor Award for her work in philanthropy. We have so many amazing stories about our members, and they're so engaged within the community. We have members that are on city councils. We have members that are part of the state government. We have members that are, they're just doing so many things on TV, and I'm really excited to share those stories. So I would encourage to anyone listening, leverage that hashtag on whatever your favorite social media platform is, or all of them. And we're going to be looking for them, and we're going to be looking for stories that we can share. And these messages will be shared to our membership and out to the public. So we've got a really, really fun year ahead of us with that. And I'm just excited to represent our association and our members this year.
I'm very proud of being part of this association. I'm excited about you leading us in 2023, Michael. And realtors out there listening, we have some homework. So we're going to be showing our work, right? Let's make sure we are telling these stories. And I'll tell you, you're right. I've heard realtors talk about numbers and, accomplishments and awards. And at the end of the day, some of those buyers are trying to just figure out their next home after a big life event, right? Or they're trying to buy that first home. And they want to hear about the experiences and what you bring to the table. Let's make sure we don't forget that. So thank you, Michael, for being with us.
Manny, thank you.
To everyone out there, it's been a pleasure sitting with y'all. I hope you have a great one, and we will see you next time on The Rundown. See ya.